Hey there, fellow artists and designers. Thanks for coming aboard today. If you know me at all, one of the things that you know about me is that I'm a big fan of the lifelong learner concept. I've been many things in my life. I've been an actor and a teacher and an animator and a maker, and I like learning new stuff all the time. One of the things that I'm currently interested in is pixel art. So of course, I've done what everybody else does, is going down the various tutorial rabbit holes. And one of the sites that I encountered was this one by an artist who goes by the handle of Miniboss, was part of the team that created the amazing platform game called Celeste. And apparently they're working on another one called Towerfall at the moment. But what drew my attention was these pixel art tutorials, which are unlike any tutorials I've ever seen. They come in the form of an animated GIF, so you get all of the information that you would possibly need, and sometimes even the math that goes along with it, which I really appreciated. But you also can see the animation principles in action, and look at all this. It's like you got a 12 principles masterclass here: exaggeration, anticipation, and payoff. And so I thought, well, this would be a great series of exercises to do. I would go for a little fire tutorial, but you really should check this out. And if you have the means, you can download this whole set for yourself for, I think, $5, which is very reasonable considering what you're getting. And then you can support this artist for making more tutorials. I'll put the link to the site down in the description. So let's see if we can find ourselves a fire tutorial and go from there. There we go. That's the one. Okay, so there's all kinds of possibilities. We could do a Bunsen burner type of thing. We could do some embers. We could make it a magical kind of fire, but I think I want to just learn how to do this more straightforward one. So Miniboss, thanks for the lesson. I'm going to digest all this information and then put it to work. Before I get started on the actual fire, I thought I would create a little scene for myself. So I'm just doing what I typically do. I create a sketch layer and then sketch the scene out in blue, and then I start drawing the line art on top of that. Breaking it down into layers, one layer for the campfire, one layer for trees in the foreground, and one for the background. I thought that would be probably plenty for me, and then just wanted to clean up all the line art and then move on to the next step, which is color. I didn't just do that instantly. That's a lot of time that passed in between. I'm still learning with the brushes. I had a lot of fun with the charcoal brush this time. So I'm trying to develop a little bit more of a painterly technique. I still have a long way to go, but I'm learning. I like that whole lifelong learner idea. And I can just kind of break this down in terms of all the different layers so you can kind of see. I keep the line art because I do a very cartoony style with my animations, at least at the present. But you can also see what it looks like without. And then slowly just building the scene back up so that you can see what I did. I didn't think you needed to see me monkeying around with different brushes, you know, because we're really not even into the fire part of it just yet. Okay, I will, however, just create a little bit of a sense of where the lighting is going to go, as you can see on the campfire there. And then I thought the stuff in the background was a little bit too bright. So as you can see, what I'm doing is I made another layer, and I called it adjustment, kind of using a technique from borrowing from Photoshop, just this idea where I just dropped a really dark color on top of it, and then I kicked the opacity down. That way I can make it look like everything else in the background is a whole lot darker, and I don't need to worry about recoloring everything and being consistent. This way you can see kind of the difference between that without the adjustment layer. And then I thought it would be a good idea before I start animating the fire is to just put a couple of other little lighting things in place. So what I did was I duplicated the campfire layer, and then I changed it from a normal to a color dodge. You can kind of see it's like right up there above in the layers, right where it says color dodge, so instead of normal. And then I just did opacity keyframes on that layer, turning the opacity up and down. What I wanted was kind of a flickering light effect, right? So you can see on the layer that has the color dodge effect, we just kind of go up and down with opacity and doing opacity keyframes down there in the timeline. And then I got about a third of the way through the animation, and then I just duplicated, and I did the same thing to the foreground trees, because I thought, well, those would be illuminated. I'm animating at 24 frames per second, and I'm just doing a little 48 frame looping animation here. Okay, so you can kind of see that in action there on the trees. And then it occurred to me that the ground in the immediate vicinity around the campfire would also be illuminated a little bit more. It'd be flickering as the flames flicker back and forth. So this is just the same technique. Opacity keyframes. Well, duplicating the layer first, the little ground layer, putting the color dodge, and then animating opacity keyframes to match what's happening in the foreground trees and the campfire. I know this is like a lot of setup before the actual even project begins. I'm working with the effects from the tutorial, but I just wanted everything in place so that I could then focus my attention on the fire, which I will get to in just a sec as soon as we wrap up these remaining opacity keyframes. That was a good little technique. It's not quite natural. I think it looks a little bit more like a flickering TV, but you know what? For the purposes of this exercise, it's not too shabby. I was kind of proud of myself. I don't always animate lighting effects, especially when I'm doing hand-drawn stuff like this, and this was kind of cool. There, you can see it. It's going. Of course, it's going a lot faster than it does in real life because we're sped up here to 200%. So now we got to look at this tutorial and figure out what we're going to do. So I thought I would just sketch it in first. So I made a sketch layer, and then I do what I typically do and just do the line art on top once I had the sketch layer in place. It's a lot like the wave principle, except the tops, right, really need to be kind of focusing upward. Like the fire is always moving straight up. So all I'm doing right now is kind of cleaning up the line art so that I can then get rid of the sketch layer. And I think here's where a point, like you see that like one little flame pointing down on the side. That's where I kind of realized, you know what, that doesn't look right. What's wrong? And then I realized, yeah, these things really need to be pointing up all the time. And that's when it kind of dawned on me how that all works. And then, just like you see in the tutorial, there's this kind of wavy S shape that just kind of gets smaller as the little embers escape. So that's what I'm doing there with the ones that are separated. This was really fun, and you can see I'm really second guessing myself a lot, just trying to make the flames look a little bit more natural. That's why I keep my hand on that Control Z. I'm all about the rapid undo. And for the most part, I'm sticking to my sketches, but as you can see, sometimes I'm really adjusting the shapes a little bit, making lots of choices, undoing. It's kind of mesmerizing just watching it. I wish it were happening this fast in real life. This was definitely a long time getting this right, but it helped having the sketch ahead of time. I find that I'm much more confident if I have this underlying sketch underneath. So it might seem like extra work, but I think it's worth it in the long run for me. And now we're just at the part where we're getting ready for some colors, so I think it's time to go back to Miniboss. Alright, so red's in the back, orange in the middle, yellow on top, follows the pattern. Let's do it. Fill in some red color. I really don't like the way the paint bucket or the fill tool works in Krita. There's probably a way to set it that I just haven't figured out yet, but it doesn't fill the way other programs do, the way I'm used to. So unfortunately, the only workaround that I've found so far is to do this kind of outlining first in the color, and then for some reason then the fill works. I don't know. The reason I don't put the colors on the same layer as the line art is that so that later on, if I decide I want to do some other painting on the flat colors, I can use alpha lock on the layer and then not worry about painting the black outlines. Right, for the particular art style that I'm using, it relies on the outlines being black and not different colors. Okay, that would be a different art style. So I'm just going with something that looks like a little bit more, I suppose, graphic novel-y, maybe more comic booky, if those are terms. So I'm just going through here right now, going through each keyframe and filling in the red. I think at some point I will trust that you can understand that it's a matter of rinsing and repeating here. And then we will jump to the orange in just a second. You can see me also making adjustments occasionally to the line art underneath, where it was just like a black line rather than having a space in between. So I just kind of trimmed some of those off. But for the most part, it's really just filling in the shape of the fire. Yeah, like there was just like an extra tip along there that trimmed off that layer. For the most part, I keep the line art layer locked so that I don't mess around with it accidentally. That's happened too many times for me. Okay, just tracing just about there. As you can see, I only take it forward to a certain sequence, and then I just copy and paste the rest of the frames the rest of the way. But I'm not going to copy and paste just yet, because I want to get the orange and the yellow on there and then copy and paste all at once. And yes, you know, in case you're wondering, I probably could make this just a 16 frame, or wherever it is that's repeating a 16 frame loop, because I'm not really making any changes. But I just wanted the ability, if later on I decided to make it so that the loop isn't as detectable, I wanted the ability to put in a little bit more variation throughout the other frames. And I might go back at some point in the future also and do the embers from the tutorial, and I also might like to do smoke as the next one in the series, in which case I'll probably just use this one again. I mean, why not? And that will also be a place where I can put in extra variation later on and make it so that the loop isn't quite so apparent. Well, now that all the keyframes exist for the color layer, it's just a matter of kind of going through and putting the orange in on top. Kind of, it loosely follows, right, from what I gather from the tutorial, it kind of loosely follows the shape, but not exactly. And then, you know, just put them all in. And then the next color on the very bottom there is the yellow. And one of the things there, like those two dots that I put in, I realized later on that, you know what, they don't go there. They're supposed to go at the bottom. You see, it's like the flame begins as yellow, and then it goes orange, and then it goes red as it moves up. So I think at some point it kind of dawned on me that that's how the chemistry works. There you go. And then I put the yellow back at the bottom. But again, that tutorial from Miniboss comes in super handy to have as a reference while you're working to just double check yourself, so you don't have to go with your intuition or go with your memory. You can actually see, oh, this is what good fire looks like. And mine is nowhere near as good as Miniboss's, of course. I'm still learning myself, but I was pretty proud of this achievement. And so yeah, thanks for joining me on this journey today. If you are doing this exercise yourself, I want to wish you good luck and have fun making fire. All right, see you next time.